Back in May, nearly 2 months before the Supreme Court released its official ruling in Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization, with the future of abortion rights in the balance, a draft of the opinion was leaked to Politico, which it published. The draft opinion overturning Roe was written by conservative Justice Samuel Alito, and it ended the constitutional right to an abortion in the United States. Now, this draft leak was a seismic moment in American politics on two levels, right? It was a tremendously unpopular decision, the actual substance of it, the overturning of a constitutional right 50 years after it had been enshrined, as we eventually saw reflected in the midterm election results. But also, the fact of the leak itself was seismic. So conservatives chose to focus on that instead of focusing on the consequences of their decades-long project to end abortion rights. Instead, conservatives found it convenient to vent their spleen at the leaker, the fact of the leak, ranting on and on about the sanctity of the court and what a massive betrayal of trust the breach was.
It was a grave betrayal of trust by somebody, and it was a shock because nothing like that had happened in the past. So it certainly changed the atmosphere at the court for the remainder of last term.
I would also humbly submit that taking away women's rights to control their bodies probably changed the atmosphere of the court, too. Now, conservatives like Alito and others just took it for granted that a liberal was behind the leak, or at least they pretended to publicly. And we should say that's entirely a plausible theory, that the decision was leaked by a liberal working at the court who was furious about it and wanted to raise awareness of the impending decision or kind of just blow the whistle, no matter how ineffectually. But of course, it's just equally plausible the decision was leaked by a conservative. And one of the possible, most likely motives, if it were that, would be to box in the justices who joined that opinion going all the way in overturning Roe, if they were worried that one of those justices might be getting cold feet, might be looking for a way to do something not quite as radical. And here's the thing. In fact, just days before the draft leaked, the Wall Street Journal editorial page, a notoriously right-wing editorial page, published this strange editorial that implied that Chief Justice John Roberts was getting cold feet about the decision, or he was trying to attract maybe one of the other members over to join him in a kind of like Solomonic half decision. So it's also entirely possible the draft was leaked for a different reason that has nothing to do with any of this, and we may never fully understand. But for the better part of a year now, the court has been, quote unquote, investigating the source of the leak. That's what Chief Justice John Roberts said. And in the intervening months, we've also learned something interesting, because back in November, the New York Times published a letter from an anti-abortion activist to Chief Justice John Roberts. The man has since recanted his previous views. And he claims that Justice Samuel Alito himself leaked the decision of a 2014 court decision limiting access to birth control. That's something Alito denies. Well, today, the court seems to have, kind of given up on trying to get to the bottom of the Dobbs leak. In a, frankly, strange report released this afternoon, the court's investigators essentially threw their hands up in the air. We looked high, we looked low, we couldn't find the leaker. They said they were not able to find the source of the leak. They even, strangely, and for reasons that are as yet unclear to me, included a testimonial from former George W. Bush Homeland Security Secretary Michael Chertoff, who basically said, "Attaboy, you looked everywhere and couldn't find it," praising their failed investigation. Now, the report also says they spoke to 97 court employees, but it is worth noting that it appears investigators didn't actually question the Supreme Court justices themselves.